Cyclone Jasper nearing Cairns, albeit slowly, on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for December 12th. So still code yellow for Cyclone Jasper, which is edging closer to the coast of Queensland, with tropical storm force winds not far from the coast and in some places possibly affecting the coast at this point. 80 storms so far this year around the world, with not too long to go. Well, in the Atlantic, of course, we're in the off-season and it's going to be 172 days until hurricane season starts up again. Let's not pay too much attention counting those days, otherwise they'll fly by, and I don't think we're quite ready for another hurricane season yet. But that's the scene in the Atlantic right now, big frontal system there. Eastern Pacific, 155 days to go there, and not too much to look at. An interesting looking system down there near the bottom, but certainly nothing that's going to develop into anything. It's nothing beyond its looks. So we're left with the full picture there from the Eastern Pacific. And now the Western Pacific, there is some satellite outages at the minute. Western Pacific, we don't have anything marked, although there is still that area that some models are still developing near the Philippines, and they've been consistent with that for a long time, but we've given up on it for the time being. In the southern hemisphere, though, of course, we've got Jasper, but we've also got these two other areas of interest. In fact, not both in the southern hemisphere. One's on the northern side of the equator, could be heading towards Sri Lanka and India in the coming week, and another one that we've just designated in the southwest Indian Ocean that could develop as well. Both 10% though at the moment. And there's Jasper, quite clear to see where it is, not far from the coast of Queensland, and we'll take a proper look at that in just a second. That became the second major hurricane equivalent of the southern hemisphere this season. So here it is right now, a cyclone warning in effect from Townsville to Cape Flattery, inland as far as Chilago, a cyclone watch for Cape Flattery to Cape Melville, and inland as far as Palmerville. It is 202 kilometres from Cairns, 206 from Innisfail, 239 from Port Douglas, also 239 from Cape Tribulation, and 248 from Mariba. Current movement is just north of west at around 11 kilometres per hour at the moment. So let's take a look at satellite imagery then. First of all, rapid scan imagery of Jasper right now, and you can see here it looked bereft of convection yesterday if you were watching our live tracker, but today it looks much better. Convection really grew and really blew up actually in the last 12 to 24 hours. Although signs of it waning once again, it is quite displaced, that convection now. Just looking at another little system here near American Samoa and Samoa that will be heading towards the southeast there and could end up, well, not developing, but it's something that we are watching. Now here's a wider shot of Jasper as it slowly approaches the coast of Australia. You can see it's very loaded on the eastern side right now, and looks like it's really being sheared on that western side, actually the side closest to Australia. So you won't really be seeing most of those windiness and rain conditions occurring just yet, but clearly on that eastern side there is quite a lot of power there, although as you look at that infrared imagery, signs that it is decomposing again, but certainly a wake-up call from what we saw the last 24 hours. It looked like it was dead, and now it's blown up massively, and it could do that once again as it reaches the coast. Nonetheless though, we're still seeing significant rainfall on that radar along the coastline already, and it will be a big rainmaker. Now here's a little disturbance in the Western Pacific. It has been tagged Invest 91W. I assume this is the latest imagery. Yep, and you can see there a big tuft of convection there on that western side. No real sign of a centre yet, and that's over the Micronesian Islands. Now sea surface temperatures, the Eastern Pacific still looking pretty decent actually off the coast of Mexico. The Atlantic's got a decent amount of warm water into the Gulf of Mexico, but further north those temperatures are really cooling now off the US coastlines south and east. And in the Western Pacific, things still looking decent there as well, but obviously cooling. 28 degrees in general, though, in the Philippine Sea, and around the Philippine Islands, a little bit cooler than that now, actually, as we look at that picture. North Indian Ocean, its warmest spots is just off the western southern tip of India into the Arabian Sea. To the east there in the Bay of Bengal, there's still a few hot pockets, but in general it is cooling. In the southwest Indian Ocean near Madagascar, temperatures are looking very good, 28 to 30 degrees Celsius. Also along the coast of Mozambique, those temperatures going up for most of the coastline actually now. So the southwest Indian Ocean is primed and ready nearly. The Australian region, extremely warm off the northern coastlines there, and in the Gulf of Carpentaria. The Coral Sea is usually later to warm up, and that's why Jasper hasn't been as strong as it might have been later on in the season. Southern Pacific there as well, water's really warming up around Fiji, 28 degrees, maybe pushing 30 in one or two spots near the northern islands there, and very warm near the equator. So compared to average, all of those orange zones are above average, and that's a large area really, especially in the tropical zones. Western Pacific very much so, Southwest Indian Ocean, large area extending into the subtropical zones. In the Australian region, a cool pool there in the Coral Sea, obvious reasons as to why. Jasper's been perched upon it and has cooled those waters substantially, and the El Nino effect still very present there in the Eastern Pacific, extending through the Central Pacific too in the equatorial zone. Still a lot of oceanic heat content, not much in the Coral Sea yet, but plenty out there in the South Pacific in those lower latitudes and just about reaching Fiji. Still a small little area in the Eastern Pacific that's probably not going to be tapped into now, and in the Western Pacific there's a few areas there left as well holding on with that energy, and still it's not rare to see late season significant typhoons. So let's check the GFS computer model then. It is still insisting that we will see 1 or even 2 tropical cyclones in the Western Pacific in the next 5 days. This is the short range, and there it is near the end of that 5-day period. A cyclone forming to the west there, just off the coast of Mindanao in the end, and then just about to make landfall. And another one much further east towards the Marshall Islands, maybe even further east than there, I can't quite tell. Not far from the Central Pacific threshold and moving in that direction. In the Bay of Bengal, we're also, of course, that 10%. Well, this is what happens to it. It eventually gets itself going a little bit as it approaches Sri Lanka and then on towards the southern part of India as well. Could it become a tropical cyclone? Possibly. It gets close there on that run. Certainly, it could become a significant rainmaker, if nothing else. So the Northern Hemisphere could have a flurry of activity if all of that comes true. Now here's Jasper. Tropical storm force winds reaching the coastline fairly soon, and there it is, properly making landfall in about 24 to 30 hours. I doubt it's going to be much longer than that, and then off it goes inland. Now we were thinking about possibilities that it could survive into the Gulf of Carpentaria. The GFS is not keen on that scenario, and I don't think many other models are either, and it weakens very quickly, to be honest, as it moves inland there. And I'm wondering whether the western part of the Cape York Peninsula even gets tropical storm force winds. As for rainfall though, we're still looking at very heavy rainfall impacts. Now this is on top of anything that's fallen so far, and we're looking still at very high amounts, and you can find updated numbers on our automated stream on the Force 13 YouTube channel. But looking at the expected rainfall amounts, I'll do the conversions as we go along here. So 25 inches, that's over 600 millimeters for the Cairns region, all along that coastline. Still 15 inches, nearly 400 millimeters to the north there towards Port Douglas, and to the south, possibly 6 inches still for the area around Townsville, 150 millimeters. Communities inland as well, such as Atherton, could see substantial rainfall there as well, up to and possibly above 12 inches, 300 millimeters. In the medium range then, day 5 to 10, first of all looking at this little straggler moving off towards the north-northeast and probably entering the Central Pacific there, but it does begin in the Western Pacific and moving off and really dying out. Now, this system moving through the Philippines, GFS have been crying wolf over this one for weeks at this point, so we're really not convinced it's going to form, but there it is. It could be a short-lived system through there over the next 10 days and dying off in the southern part of the South China Sea. Meanwhile, off the coast of India, that storm consolidating briefly and then dying out by the looks of things and then moving southwest, but also this southwest Indian Ocean system really developing in that 5 to 10 day period towards the end and giving Mauritius a big run for its money, becoming a hurricane strength storm as it gets closer there. Looking at the dates here, there's the 19th, 20th of December becoming a hurricane equivalent, and then swinging southeastwards, possibly category 3 there, a compact system affecting Mauritius. Australian region also up to some shenanigans too. Maybe some remnant energy from Jasper, I'm not sure at this point, but there are signals here from the GFS of 2 cyclones forming off the northern part of Australia and off the northern part of Western Australia and East Timor and Indonesia. So throughout that period, 2 cyclones trying to develop there, one of them very close to Darwin, and we'll catch up with that in a moment. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you'll probably still just about get in before Christmas delivery, and all of our usual items are on there and are still waiting for Hone t-shirts. Absolutely. Well, this is a very silly range today. First of all, though, the Indian Ocean spits out another tropical cyclone on the 22nd, 23rd of December, and there it is, sauntering along, moving towards the west-northwest, possibly getting close to hurricane force as it approaches Sri Lanka. Now, these kinds of tracks are usually reserved for this time of year. It's very rare that we see such low latitude tracks, but if they do happen, when they happen, it's usually in mid to late December. So certainly can't rule out that one completely, and it could be a significant Sri Lanka impact because they're not really used to these storms. Now, the southwest Indian Ocean, this storm continues there to harass the Mascarene Islands, and then it returns around and makes for La Reunion and makes landfall there as well with hurricane force winds just before Christmas, and then pulling off towards the south and southeast and finally turning post-tropical around the 27th, 28th, right at the end of that run. Now, this is of course very long range, not to put faith into it yet, not even for the Mauritius landfall, just to keep watching. Of course, the system hasn't even formed yet, and that is likely to change. Australian region is where the most silliness is at, though, with these 2 systems. The first one to the west, not too bad. The other one, though, becomes hurricane equivalent, moves northwards towards the Indonesian islands, getting to very low latitudes there at hurricane strength, and then pulls back towards the southwest, becoming a very powerful cyclone there, category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale by the end of that run. So that could be a very powerful cyclone, potentially impacting the coast of Australia just after Christmas. Wow. The other one stalls, by the way, doesn't do anything. Well, on this day, we had 2 cyclones active in the southern hemisphere. It was December 12th, 1983, where we had Cyclone Andre, which was making landfall on the northwestern part of Madagascar, making a recurvature. There's an enhanced image of it. It peaked as a category 4 on the previous day. We also had Cyclone Fritz, which was very weak, but it was just about to move into actually a similar area as to where Jasper is right now, maybe a little bit further north. Only peaked at around 45 miles per hour and was just off the coast of Australia on this day 40 years ago. Back to today, and if we do see any more storms before the end of the year in the Atlantic, it will be Vince. In the Eastern Pacific, it will be Selma. And if we see any storms in the future of mankind in the Central Pacific, it will be named Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Jelawat, and in the North Indian Ocean, our next name now is Rainfall. 80 storms so far, 92 is the annual average, and it looks like we'll be ending up being just short of that number. In the Southern Hemisphere, the next name in the Australian region is Kirrily. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, we'll be starting with Alvaro, and in the South Pacific, our next name is Nat. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. Hopefully we'll be back to daily bulletins, we'll see, but that's all for us tonight.